the first Black History Beauty event. That's awesome. Can you look at somebody? Great. Awesome. So before we get started into this conversation today, I want to create the space for each one of our panelists to brag on themselves. And I really want to be purposeful of that. I want to give you permission to brag on yourselves, because oftentimes as Black people, we've been taught to humility, keep it down. I think there's something in people knowing who's talking to them. So I'm going to pass the mic here and allow you to go ahead to Mr. Goff and brag on yourself.
Yeah, I have to stand up. I think better on my feet, and I talk with my hands a lot, so I know what I'm going to do with this mic. But anyway, I am Rick Goff, Harold Goff, for those who know me really well. If you call me Harold Goff, that means you have heard of Fitzgerald, Georgia. Anybody ever heard of Fitzgerald? That's my true home, and people from Fitzgerald, they only call me Harold, but they call me Little Harold. But I've outgrown that a little bit, and now I am Rick Goff. I am an author. I'm a retired Air Force veteran. I am what else? I'm a husband of 36 years. And I'll tell you a quick story about us. We were commissioned the same day out of the University of Georgia. We retired the same day out of Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. And we literally slept in. For those of you who've ever served or know about the military, that does not happen. And I tell you one reason why. I know a guy that helps me with stuff like that. My spiritual life rounds me out. My spiritual life completes me. My spiritual life is who and what I am. It's a part of what I am. And I will tell you, without that guy, I wouldn't be standing in front of you today. So I thank all of you for being here today. I hope you get something out of this. I asked Lauren earlier to go get some of those young people. I love the audience. I'm glad everybody's here. We have an appreciation of where we come from and what we've gone through. But our young people need to hear and see what it is we do and how we got to where we are. And the last thing I'll mention today, I read an article today on I'll just call it the Lynching Museum, if you will, down in Montgomery, Alabama. I went last year, and I encourage you to go at some point, but I will tell you it was one of the most challenging exhibits for me. It's something we need to see as part of our past. We need to embrace it. We need to understand it, if for no other reason, to make sure it never happens again. Thank you so much, and I hope we can really discuss some important issues today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Freeman Gibbs, and I'm an author. And I guess to brag on myself, I didn't plan to be an author. I worked in corporate America for 22 years after attending Florida A&M University, so another HBCU in the house. Originally from Lansing, Michigan, and ended up making my way, following promotions until I got here to San Antonio. And so after working for 22 years, we went through a corporate downsizing. I was laid off, trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And next thing I knew, I was writing a book. And my book was published in 2018. It's called Reasonable Insanity, a Dr. Olivia C. Maxwell novel. And I have copies in the trunk of my car. But I am married to Mr. J. Gibbs, who is right back there, my wonderful husband. He's my #1 cheerleader. And but I'm just honored and pleased to be a part of this panel discussion here today. I came down from Pflugerville, where I guess I'll brag and say I participated in a contest with other authors where we had to present our books, and they selected which author would be their author of the year, and I won. I'm glad to be part of Buddha's first Black History program. It's amazing to be a part of something that is the beginning, and so thank you for having us here.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott Bowman, Dr. Scott Bowman.
Dr. Scott
Bowman. I am an associate professor in the School of Criminal Justice at Texas State University. I'm also the special assistant to the provost for inclusion and diversity. I I came from Arizona State University, which is pretty much the exact opposite of HBCU. But I did my undergraduate in psychology and did everything else in a program called Justice Studies. So if you hear something from me, or if you've met me or talked to me or been where I've been speaking, it's always rooted in justice, for what it's worth. I have been married for almost 20 years. My wife is in Greece. I'm here, and she's in Greece. She does love me. Their cousin. So, and had 2 daughters and have been living in Kyle for 15 years now. So, I'm local. I think that's it. Written journal articles, books on crime and incarceration and race and ethnicity, you name it. If it's justice related, chances are I'm going to handle it. So.
You know, when we talk about Black history, oftentimes it's separated from the overall American history. It gets regulated to a month, it gets regulated to one course within your 4 years of college, or if it even makes that at all. But we know that there's no American history without Black history. Because in essence, when you talk about American history, what you're talking about is the way that race has formed, shaped, developed, and put together the narrative of what we call the USA today. The good, the bad, and the ugly of it. You know, we know, Dr. Bowman, race now is a social construct. They say race is a social construct, and as much as race is a social construct, it still doesn't make it any less real. Can you talk to us a little bit how race has shaped, formed the society that we live in today? When you're talking about the systems that we have, criminal justice, healthcare, education, the way that race has shaped and constructed the society that we live in and interact with today?
Sure, absolutely. And one thing I forgot to mention, because I've seen mostly all the beautiful sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha, I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
We'll hold that against you.
So regarding race as a social construct, it is one of the things that we still struggle to wrap our minds around. If you were to take a DNA test, chances are your DNA would be more closely associated to someone of a different race than yours. And it's hard for us to wrap our minds around that and to understand that what we really talk about is a social construct. Over the past 400 some odd years, we've made that social construct count for everything. And as was said before, when we talk about differences or disparities or discrimination as it pertains to criminal justice, education, housing, medicine, and kind of everything else, it is so deeply rooted and entrenched in our everyday lives that it is, and I'm borrowing from a sociologist named Judith Morber, although she was talking about gender, but I'm going to suggest it's the same thing. Talking about race is like a fish talking about water. There's no reason to talk about it because we know it exists in and around all of us, and it is inescapable. There is no escape. There's no amount of class. We know Oprah has been profiled in businesses. We know that there are folks with considerable amounts of money that are still kept outside of larger opportunities and larger spaces. And so it's important to understand that in this kind of beginning of this narrative, on the one hand, what we're talking about is something that we know isn't true. But at the same time, we hold on to it. And again, I don't mean culture and everything else, because those, like Black fraternities and sororities and, Juneteenth, Black History Month, those things are important and relevant. But our skin tone, our skin complexion is a function and construction of our proximity to the equator and nothing else. Everything else that we add to it, the politics of it, the sociology of it, the economics of it is fabricated, is not real, but there's a lot of power held in keeping it real, unfortunately.
No, that's where I think when I hear you talk, I hear there's a narrative that they put on our skin tone. There's a narrative they put in with the texture of our hair. There's a narrative they put to all this phenological typos of what we look like, and to that, you know, we have a lot of disparities, the health disparities, over incarceration, the list goes on. And I think it guides the way that people hold implicit biases. So when you start talking about exclusionary practices within school, you have implicit biases within teachers, implicit biases within judges that are making these outcomes.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, so one of the classes I teach is an undergraduate class on race, ethnicity, and crime. And I'll tell you what I told them. Up until about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I had dreadlocks. I had dreadlocks down to my back. And I said to them as a class, I said, if I was ever arrested for drugs, even if I had not done it, I would take the spork that they gave me to eat, and I would try my best to take every one of them out because of the implicit bias associated between dreadlocks and African Americans and drugs. I believe that would not get a fair shot at, a shot at a fair trial because of that. That's something that's fundamentally implicit, and that's just a criminal justice example. That's not the implicit biases that lead to microaggressions, the implicit biases that lead to decision-making. One of the areas that implicit bias research has become more pronounced is in the medical field, and discussing perceptions of African-American pain and African-American tolerance for pain, African-Americans attempting the perception, the implicit bias or implicit association that African-Americans are trying to get drugs to sell them, or trying to get drugs and don't need them, and everything that goes along with it, and it is having a profound impact in the disparity of medical treatment that African Americans receive. And so implicit bias is a tremendous part of this issue.
That's a great point. I'm glad you bring that up. And the way you talking about race like fish talking about water, because they're naturally in it. And this is so far infused into our culture. If you look at Black Wall Street in Tulsa, it was the mass killings of black people in Tulsa. And what happens to the narrative? They change it from mass killings to what? A racial riot. What does that imply? That there was something going on both sides. Right? So this ability to take our narrative and tell a story that really frames what we've experienced, where we are and where we're going is significant. You know, I think about Sabrina, Trayvon Martin's mother. After George Zimmerman was let off, she said, I cried, and I cried some more. But now it's time to fight, because I refuse to let them tell Trayvon's legacy. Ms. Gibbs, you're an author. And I think that's so powerful, because you can craft a story and you tell a story and you own a story. What would you say is the big thing or important for us as a culture to start holding on to our story and telling the story through our lens?
So that's a really good question, because if we don't tell our story, then others will tell an incomplete narrative. So we have an opportunity and a responsibility to tell the complete narrative. And if you think about the lineage from which we come, there was a time when we were not allowed to read and write, and it was punishable in some cases by death. And so now here it is, we have the opportunity to write and create stories where we can share the richness of our history, and to make sure that the world knows what our story is, and that emboldens us as a people. And all of us, we want to know that people see us as human. That's something that we desire, that's something that we need, is to have that sense of humanity. And so as an author, I have the power of the pen to create stories about professionals who are educated, that have real world experiences, and whether it's functional or dysfunctional lives, showing that they are multifaceted and complex, and showing African Americans in a light that perhaps others may not create that same narrative for us. And so we want to make sure that we're not viewed as a monolithic group, that we do have diversity in terms of the way that we think and the way that we move in society. So that's our responsibility, and that's what will strengthen our narrative when we tell the story.
How many of y'all feel comfortable telling your narrative? He said, comfortable is debatable, right? Not a lot of hands went up. I think a lot of times we go silent, and I think one of the biggest weapons we have on us is our voice, right? To be able to speak up, to be able to speak out, to be able to shape the way that other people see us, engage with us, but then allow them to invite them in to see the way that we see the world and shape that. And I think that's so powerful because that creates exposure. Exposure and access for our youth, exposure and access for our little ones. At UT, one of the things that we do is we take a lot of our black students to Cape Town, South Africa, Beijing, China, Dubai, India, New York, just to give them exposure to something different. Because when you have exposure to something different, you reimagine, or your prophetic imagination comes out a little bit different. Rick,
I want to tell a quick story about, in my various careers that I've had, I've always been the only one. And I'm reflecting that even now. You know, even in the Air Force, in most units, except for the first one, I was the only African American officer in most cases. My wife and I were usually the only ones in whatever unit we were in. In corporate America, I was the only vice president executive. That's the exact thing. I was there 10 years, the only one. Sirius XM satellite, I was the only black. In meetings you go to, I'm the only one. You know, it bothered me initially at first. It did. It bothered me a little bit at first. But after a while, you know, I accepted my position and my role in that. Not only for my coworkers and everybody to see me. You know, I did good work. I knew I was good at what I did. You know, but I got to tell my narrative. I finally got comfortable telling my story in no matter what environment it was. And I will tell you how I got convicted once. We're in a group, we're discussing some issues, and some personnel issues. And one of the individuals, they were talking about, just so happened to be an African American. And the things they were saying, you know, I go, now what have I done to make you think you can talk about this individual to me? And I don't mean, no. Let me make sure you understand, while I'm one of you, I'm not. I understand his narrative. I understand where he's from. And I had to step up and say, wait a minute, all things being equal, these two guys you're talking about, this guy gets the nod, this guy doesn't, and this, I never understood it until I started having to speak that narrative in that boardroom. If I didn't, nobody was. And I am proud to say, as I left both companies, I saw other executives coming up in the ranks. But it was having to, and it was very uncomfortable at first. When you said how many of us were comfortable speaking our narrative, it just struck a nerve. I was not very comfortable at first. It was a challenge. I didn't say anything.
Right.
I was trying to play along and get along. Number one, thinking I needed that to stay in the room. Look, I'd already earned the right to be in the room. And I was going to stay in the room. And I didn't. I was there to bring a different perspective to the room. And I had to live up to that expectation, not only from one of the guys that hired me but from within.
Right.
You know, it was a challenge, but I almost remember to the day when it changed. I got to speak this narrative. Not just this, I got to speak it. You can't just, we got to be seen. You have to be seen. You got to be in the room. But once you're in there, you got to speak your narrative. I had to learn to speak my narrative.
That's real. And sometimes there's barriers to speaking your narrative. Dr. Bowman, I'm going to come back to you with that because as another academic, when I put out a piece, I'll often get feedback from review boards or journal articles that says, you know what you wrote is not generalizable because you're talking about black people, right? I'll reply back, well, you got studies that look at purely white people, and that's fine. Why can't I tell this experience? How do you overcome when people try to minimize your voice in spaces where you have expertise to speak up?
Well, I think part of that is the nature of the gathering today is being able to tell that narrative and share that narrative. As I mentioned before, I'm in criminal justice, but my dissertation work was actually on black socioeconomics. I wanted to understand how wealth and asset decisions were made with black middle class families. And so I did in-depth interviews in 3 different cities and analyzed everything. And anytime I would talk to someone and I would say, yeah, I want to understand how black middle class decision making is taking place for wealth and assets, they would say, well, they would either say, are you going to compare it to white folks? Or they would say, are you, they would say, why aren't you including white folks, right? So sociology, education, psychology, most academics, research is a black-white comparison. And so there's this natural inclination to say, well, are you going to compare this to, are you going to compare blacks to whites? And the answer that I would give consistently was, that story may be important, but that's not my story. That's not how I arrived at my research topic. That's not how I arrived at understanding. And if you understand the history of economics and black economics in this country, an understanding of black economics is quintessentially important compared to everyone else, sure, less maybe Native American populations. Right? There's a long history of isolation, discrimination, etc., leading up to, literally just mass elimination of folk. And so the answer for that was understanding us is important. Writing this article for us is important. If you read it and you find it interesting, that's great. But it's not for everybody. You're right, it's not generalizable. This isn't for everybody, right? And I have other work that I do that is for everybody. But to go back to one of the things I said at the beginning, in the social construction of race, I didn't create the construction, right? I just have, as most of us, you just have to live in it. You have to exist in it, you have to manage it and negotiate and resist and all of the things that are associated with that process on a day-to-day, sometimes minute-by-minute basis. And so it's really just finding that space and sometimes choosing that space to say, this is a time where I need to speak up, this is a time where it may not be in my best interest or may not be in the best interest of maybe someone else, right? That, I don't want to mess it up for people that are trying to come up behind me. But it's a challenge, and it's an ongoing challenge that if you haven't had to negotiate it yet,